गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गणेश शॉर्ट। गणेश शॉर्ट में आप सबका स्वागत है। I don't think too many people will come today, but that doesn't stop us from doing what we're supposed to do. Sometime back, a few of you said, "Look, can we talk and understand what's going on in Sudan?" So I said, "Okay, let's understand Sudan's civil war." There'll be a broad understanding today of what's happening in Sudan. It's a tragedy. It's a human tragedy. Let me make that clear. And when I started going into Sudan and discovering facts, I found it was like a snake's head. I mean, multiple heads and a lot of things. I couldn't I couldn't really get hold of the whole story. But then I went back to my roots. I must tell you this. I'm from NDA, and if you ever go to NDA, the main block out there is Sudan block. So I scratched my head. Then I had a friend who was doing the long gunnery staff course with me in School of Artillery in 1984, Salah Ahmad Abbas. And we spent 1 year together, young officers and a gentleman of the highest order. And he was actually an infantry officer who was sent to India to learn about artillery. And we were bachelors. We were two good friends, Indians who were bachelors, and this chap visiting in the same block. So he would come to us for everything. And we became friends. We used to take him along everywhere. And if there was ever a sweet guy like him, I mean, I don't know where he is today. And during the course itself, his sister came and his brother-in-law came, and we treated him for a dinner. Those days with what we could do, and we were very good friends. But that was 1983, 84, and after that, I've lost touch with him. I remembered what all he said about, Sudan. At that time, Sudan was a relatively peaceful place, but things were happening, right? And he spoke of his hometown and everything, and it felt normal, like any other thing. And when I remember talking to him about problems in his country, everything, you found that a lot of things which happened in Sudan happened similar to what happened in India. The difference I'll just touch on it. And that is why I thought I must talk of Sudan today. Why? By many ways of looking at it, Sudan is a failed country. It failed. Uh, and part of it is broken. Sudan was the biggest state in Africa. Biggest. It was bigger than South Africa. Today it's the third biggest. Why? Because in 2011, South Sudan broke off. Just like East Pakistan, West Pakistan. And South Sudan is a different country. There are no problems there. It's quite okay. It's going on. Because there are certain issues, but it's not a matter of concern. But like Pakistan, it broke. North Sudan, like West Pakistan, is full of problems. And it's interesting to understand a failed state or a failing state. Much like what's happening in Pakistan. Could what's happening in Sudan happen to Pakistan, say 5 years, 10 years down the line? That is why I said, okay, let me get into Sudan and make all of you understand what's happening there. It might not exactly be what we are talking of, but somewhere there are issues, right? So if there are issues, we need to understand them, and that's what we're going to do today. Okay, so that's where we'll start understanding Sudan's civil war. Look, you just must have heard a few days back, right? That the rebels, the RSF rebels, shot down a IL-76 military transport aircraft in Sudan. And that was of the Sudanese army. Okay. And there were Russians in the plane. It was shot down by a Chinese missile system. Interesting. So the Chinese weapon systems and the Russian weapon systems are actively working in a battlefield in Sudan. I expect very soon that Chinese will be selling their wares. So look at our missile system; it shot down IL-76. But it shot down IL-76 probably which didn't have any protection. That's a different story. What were Russians doing in that plane? Who's backing whom? Why are they fighting? There are a lot of questions. And when you see what's happening there, you can get a great, large, I would say a broad estimate what's happening elsewhere also. That's why I picked this up, because this is an active conflict and probably with the maximum number of casualties going at this point. There's no other conflict where so many casualties are happening. Well, let's understand where Sudan is. This is Africa. Okay. And this is Sudan in the middle, where my pointer is. Right? That's Sudan. Around that, to the north is Egypt. To the northwest is Libya. To the west is Chad. Southwest is the Central Asian Republic. So not Central Asian Republic, Central African Republic. Right? To the south is South Sudan. Further to the south is the Democratic Republic of Congo. And you have the other states of Uganda, Kenya, Somalia, and to the west is Ethiopia. Now, the interesting part of Sudan, which I must tell all of you in the beginning, is that you find the entire region of Sahel, Africa, North Africa, the desert part and the arid part is all Muslim. The central part, which is the green belt, the Central Africa, is all Christian. You call it Ethiopia, Somalia, Uganda, Kenya, South Sudan, DRC, Central Asia. They're largely Christian. Christianity is spread here quite a bit. It's not as if other religions are not there. They're there. But in these countries, I mean, you have problems. Democratic Republic of Congo has had a problem. Chad has a problem. Uganda, we know that. So, but there's a difference. Like I said, Christianity versus Islamism is there, prevalent. Okay. Then when you see it very closely, you see River Nile. Goes to a large part of River Nile is in Sudan. When you say the civilization, the Nile civilization, everyone talks of Egyptian civilization and then civilization along the Nile. But if you actually see the Nile civilization, to a large extent also is of Sudan. The bulk of Nile flows through Sudan. It just enters. And in fact, when South Sudan was part of Sudan, almost the entire Nile was in Sudan. Right? And despite this, you see how fractious this country has been. You have to understand these things. Let's talk a little bit about Nile. It's the longest river in the world. Have a look at it fully. It's the longest river in the world. 6,853 kilometers from Africa's central heartland, not to the Mediterranean Sea. There are 10 countries which goes through or Nile goes through. Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo. Yeah, you have Egypt, Ethiopia. This is Egypt, this is Ethiopia, Eritrea. Okay, this is of course Sudan, Khartoum in the center. Okay, Khartoum is the place where the Blue Nile and the White Nile join. Rwanda, this year. Burundi and Rwanda, sorry, yeah, Burundi and Rwanda are here, right? Okay, and Tanzania and Uganda this year. That's because of Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria spans, Lake Victoria is the one from which Nile starts, and that spreads over, even touches Kenya to some extent. Half of it is in Tanzania, some part of it is in Uganda, right? And then it goes up north. So this river is a defining river of this region. There's no doubt about it. And the bulk of Nile, from Juba right up to the point it enters Egypt, was once upon a time in Sudan. Bulk of the flow. And Khartoum being the place where Blue Nile joins. Blue Nile starts from Lake Tana in Ethiopia and comes down and joins here. And really speaking, this area should have been very fertile and happy and prosperous. But it's not been so. That's how it is. It's got tremendous mineral resources and energy resources. Gold, copper, iron ore, uranium, oil and natural gas. Oil is transported to Port Sudan, right? Where is Port Sudan? Let's see. This is Port Sudan. Okay. Yeah, this is Port Sudan. Have a look here. This is Port Sudan. And from there, it's transported out. It's got agriculture and water resources. It's got arable land, livestock, gum arabic. A whole lot of things. Okay. There's a lot of uranium in Darfur, and that's why a lot of fighting is going on there. So you find, a whole lot of things, even iron ore. Darfur is rich in minerals. And we'll see where Darfur is, because that's interesting. And Darfur is a place where the fight for resources is huge. A lot of genocide has happened and is continuing to happen in Darfur. Why? Because there are tribes spread over. That place is rich of minerals. People want to exploit it. Bang. It's a sad state. Every country is involved in it. Okay. Right. This is it. This blue area is the one which is controlled by the RSF, Rapid Support Force, and the red area is the one which is controlled by the Sudanese military. And there are other groups hanging around there. There's always, in such mela, there'll be others also hanging around. And this is the Darfur area, this Al Fasher. Al Fasher is the place where there's a genocide going on now. Okay. Today, when you look at news, you'll see Al Fasher. This is Al Fasher. And this area. And this area has traditionally been unstable because there are no borders there. Borders are there. The borders are defined also. We'll talk of the history, then we'll understand it. But people go left, right, and center. They're tribes, much like what Pashtuns are. They don't respect borders. And the tribal issues, there are largely Islam Christian issues, so many things, so many layers of problems between them. There are, of course, minerals, control of resources. So there's a whole lot of issues going on there. You have to understand that. I forgot one thing to say. Right, these two gentlemen, these are the guys. This chap, Burhan, General Burhan, he is the head of the Sudan army or the Sudan military forces, official government forces. He is Hemditi, right? He is the rebel commander. He's from Darfur area. This chap is from the Khartoum area. And they're evenly matched. Both want to control Sudan. Okay. Yeah. So, right. Now let me go back. Yeah. Now this is Sudan bloc. Yeah. Having seen this, I hope you understood this. If you have questions, definitely ask me later. And this is Sudan bloc. So such a majestic building. Can you imagine that this the funds for the Sudan bloc was given by the Sudanese government in 1941 to recognize Indian troops' gallantry during the North African campaign in World War II. And after the partition happened in 1947, the money which Sudanese government gave was used here to build this. The foundation stone was laid by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru on 6th October 1949. And it took 5 years for the huge building to get completed. 1954 it got completed. I joined NDA in 1973. Okay. And by then, of course, Sudan bloc was that majestic bloc. I felt lucky and honored to be educated there. And that is the loyalty I had to Sudan. So actually today we were, my wife and I were talking about Sudan and Sudan bloc and all that in India, and my mind drifted into Sudan. And I said, a lot of people are asking what's happening in Sudan. Here I am, educated in the Sudan bloc, and I'm not talking of it. So I said, let me talk. Let me talk. Even if 100 people come and join in by evening, I'll be more than happy. नमक की बात है भाई, नमक की बात है. Okay. The building was formally named Sudan Block and inaugurated on 30th May 1959 by the then Sudanese ambassador to India, Syed Rahmatullah Abdullah. Right? In this building, if you see the word Sudan is, have a look at it fully. Yeah. Here it's written Sudan. It's in Hindi and in English. And it's a magnificent building. Top of the line. And we learned what Sudan was when we were in India. And so some of my old, knowledge I'm going to put in here. This is the view you get from Sudan block. As you get on from the steps where these three chaps are standing, these three people are standing, when you see this expanse till date. The last time I went was to that place where and saw this magnificent thing was when my course had the 25th and we had the we had our golden jubilee celebration, so we went there. And all of us oldies, we got together and saw this from there. Of course, last 2 years back not last 2 years back, 1 year, last year I went to NDA and we just passed through but didn't go to this place. So, a lot of memories. But let me get back to Sudan, actual, and talk of the history. Understanding this is important. This was under the Ottoman Empire earlier. It was in 1881 that there was a revolt against the Ottoman Empire, and 1899 to 1955, for about 55, 56, half a century, this was under the joint rule of British and the Egyptians. I mean, virtually it's British rule. Egyptians were there because the Britishers were there in Egypt, so it was taken over by them. Right? And in 1956, Sudan became independent. Mind you, before this country became independent, also they contributed to Sudan bloc when before we became independent, 1941. Right? They had coups, yeah, wo, and in 1962 they had their first civil war. At that time, the civil war was between the north and the south. North was all about Islam, south was all about Christianity. Right? Without going into personalities and all that. 1972, 10 years of civil war. There was a peace deal signed in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, between the warring factions. Right. Now, 1978, oil is discovered in South Sudan on Bentiu, at Bentiu. So South Sudan is prosperous. North Sudan is arid, only agriculture. By then, till then, what was there in Darfur was still hidden. The genocides in Darfur started when people realized that iron ore there, uranium, yeah, war, tribes were protective, yeah, all that. Nine, this had always had, around the time oil discovered, all that, Sharia law was imposed. It always had Islamic leanings. And this was one of the problems because the Christian South didn't accept the Sharia law ever. Okay. 10 years later, there's an interesting character who's dominated Sudanese politics and Sudanese thing. Oman al Bashir. He's appointed the president. Oman al Bashir, I mean, I've heard him once or twice. Once I remember, this was around 95, 96. 95, 96. I heard him speak in a BBC interview. The way he spoke was something out of the world in that interview. It was a walking interview. By then, he was the president of Oman. Sorry, Sudan. But Oman al Bashir was terrific. But to me, he sounded like a devil at that time. And sure enough, he was a cutter Islamist. And to a large extent, he propagated the Al Qaeda line of thought. In fact, if you go into the history, when Osama bin Laden was kicked out of Saudi Arabia, he went to Afghanistan. In the early 90s, when he came off from Afghanistan to Sudan, when Oman al Bashir became the president. And Oman al Bashir helped Osama bin Laden set up Al Qaeda. And then there was a lot of pressure because, see, both these chaps are complete snakes. So at some point of time, Oman al Bashir must have felt that here is Osama bin Laden who wants to take over from me. he feared a coup and threw him out. And promptly Osama bin Laden goes back to Afghanistan. And the rest is history. That's in Afghanistan and 9/11 and all that. But what happens here in Sudan? This fellow starts creating a program of a genocide. We'll see that. Okay. Oh, 93, this fellow takes over and he starts interfering in all the places. He wants to export Islamism. He wants to kill the president of Ethiopia, who accuses him of being an assassin. Okay. Ultimately, by 1998, we all think that 2000, what happened here? In 1998, there was a chemical plant in Khartoum, which was under the cover of being a pharmaceutical plant, was producing chemical weapons. So US strikes that. Okay. Then, with all this happening, there's a power struggle also. So Oman al-Bashir declares emergency and he jails his opposition. And while all this is happening, oil starts getting exported from Port Sudan, pipelines, there's a lot happening. There's Islamism being funded, there is internal coups taking place, oil being exported, everything. And then, of course, South Sudan goes into a topspin. You have to see this fully. So South Sudan goes into a topspin. Okay. And 1 minute. Yeah. So, South Sudan and Darfur, they go into a topspin. So, as people are talking and peace talks with South Sudan and all that in 2002, 2004, Darfur goes for a toss. And there's a pro-government Arab Janjaweed militias which comes up. So the successor of Oman al-Bashir, he creates a Janjaweed militia from locals in Darfur. And they start getting hold of all the resources. Okay. Anyone who's non-Arab is killed there. So they get involved in extermination of all these chaps. Now, that Janjaweed militia is today Hemditi's force. That's the militia RSF, which is getting weapons from China. About 4 years back, there was a article which came out where China supplied missiles to the Sudanese forces. Now the RSF chaps went and raided that place, and the Chinese ran away from there. Then the RSF guys picked those missiles up and the rocket launchers and took it out from them. And then the Chinese went back, and then the trade started between them. So this is China for you. Yeah. Okay. So all this is happening. And around 2004, the Darfur genocide starts. It continued for 3 years. More than 3 million people have been exterminated there. I mean, the figures vary. You have to see whichever. It could be 2 million, it could be 3 million, it doesn't matter. Numbers are not issue. In 2007, coming closer now. So there is the UN approves a peacekeeping force there. Right? They want a 26,000 strong peacekeeping force. Okay? But tension continues. There's no problem. And there are problems in these rebels and government forces. This is not new what's happening. In 2007 also they were there. So they start raiding Khartoum. Khartoum is in the center of the thing. Let me show that. I mean, something which I missed out. Okay. Look, this is Khartoum, right? And this is Darfur. And this is Port Sudan. Right now, as of today, the Sudanese backed forces, I showed you that map. Yeah. The Sudanese backed forces control Khartoum and Port Sudan. And the RSF controls this Darfur area. But there's always fighting around Khartoum. Who controls Khartoum? Controls Sudan. Capital. Okay. So that problem is always there. It didn't start then. That's why I went there. Right? It started then. It started way back in 2008. And this was after, it was not after, in fact, it was during that time only. Now, this Oman al Bashir is also an interesting guy. The 2-3 times he goes out, he comes back in. Okay, right. In 2009, the International Criminal Court gives out a warrant against Oman al Bashir, but no one arrests him. Can you imagine? This fellow takes over in 93, I showed you earlier. 2009, he's declared as a criminal. He's the guy who's presided over the Darfur, massacres. And he's the guy who raised this Janjaweed militia in the south. Okay. And the International Criminal Court issues a warrant against him. Nothing happens. He goes to Kenya and comes back. No one arrests him. Much like what they've issued a red corner notice for Putin. Putin is going all over the country. And he's going to come to India also. He's going to USA also. In between, Oman al-Bashir contests polls also. And in those polls, he manages to win by 95%. So there are a lot of chaos which has been continuously going on in Sudan. Okay. And finally, after all this fighting which goes on, all that, it's a brokered peace. 2011, South Sudan, which is predominantly Christian, they break away from Sudan. Okay, and they're prospering because oil is there. Now, in Sudan, there's uranium, iron ore, and all those materials, but they're in Darfur area. So, Darfur area is controlled by RSF. The pipelines go through the rest of the area in the government-backed area to Port Sudan, Khartoum to Port Sudan. That's a more prosperous area. That is controlled by the Sudanese forces. Okay, so the whole thing becomes a problem, right? Then around 2019, finally, Oman al-Bashir is toppled and is put in jail. So he for about 30 years, Oman al-Bashir, he is the guy who's ruined Sudan and people. To me, it is a question mark. Why didn't he allow Osama bin Laden to get back into this area? It's my belief that Osama bin Laden got training from Omar al-Bashir. And you have to listen to those interviews. Mind blowing. I remember it. Okay. Now let's get to the current situation. At this point of time, the fighting is between the rapid support forces and the government forces, Sudanese forces. I showed you the red and blue thing. Now, the interesting thing is both these fellows, Burhan and Hemditi, were the president and vice president. When Omar al-Bashir was thrown out, They were the president and the vice president. And then they went and they said they got a civilian in. Then they both made a coup against that civilian. It happened twice. And then they took over together and then they fell apart. So this struggle is between a president and his vice president at this point of time. That's what I've written. Both emerged as leaders of the transitional government after a 2019 coup that ousted Omar al-Bashir. The guy who came in between as a prime minister is a chap called Abdullah Hamdok. So this chap, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, threw out that Hamdok, along with Muhammad Hamdan Dagalo. Muhammad Hamdan Dagalo is called Hemdeti. Here it's written as Hemeti. It's Hemdeti. Hemedti, whatever it is. Now, this RSF is fundamentally from the Janjaweed militia. It was created by Bashir. So, Bashir created this Janjaweed militia, which then became the RSF. The head of the Janjaweed militia is Dagalo or Hemdeti. And now they're fighting. Okay. Now it is, how are they fighting? Where are they getting money from? Yeah, that's the next story. Saudi Arabia and UAE were backers of the transitional government when Omar al-Bashir was thrown out. Because both these people thought that if Omar al-Bashir is left to survive, he'll start toppling other governments. So they came in, got him thrown out, got both these fellows in. Okay. But Saudis and UAE have started supporting Hemdeti or Hemeti, whatever you call it. Call him. I'm not sure. Why? They want gold. They want uranium. Who wants uranium? USA. What is US interest? US interest comes through UAE and Saudis. The Sudan military force, where do they get their interest from? Or who are their backers? Egypt. Iran and Russia are on that side. So there's a proxy war going on there. So Egypt, Iran, Russia, UAE, Saudis, USA. So you understand the bigger game. The Russians have never left Egypt. After all, it was Russia and Egypt had a huge connect going back to the Egypt-Israel war, 6-day war, Yom Kippur war and all that. And incidentally, in between, Sudan also dabbled in communism, sponsored by USSR, long back. So in all these areas, during the Cold War, these were all influenced by Russia. So that communist influence and that leftist influence is there. And today, both these people are evenly matched in terms of the capabilities. Army has more firepower. RSF has got greater fighting experience because Darfur was always fighting. And this Janjaweed militia was used against the South when that fight was going on. So that's how it is. And everyone is worried about the Red Sea routes. Okay, if you go back, I have to take you back, but I'll do that. No, not a problem. Look at this. Everyone is worried about the Red Sea route. If there's instability in Sudan, there's instability here in Somalia, there's instability in Yemen, this Red Sea route is down. And let's look at it from a left-handed point of view. If there's instability continuing in Sudan and these Houthis don't get through, People will want the IMEC to go through. Iran is unstable. Yemen is unstable. Sudan is unstable. Who will want it to go put ships through? They'll say, okay, from Bombay we'll go to Jebel Ali over route, then off Haifa to Piraeus. I'm giving you the connections. How this is going to help? Or unfortunate, people are going to die in South Sudan. And as of now, that battle seems to be going on non-stop. They know, then I mean, it'll go on because there is no middle ground for anyone there. And that middle ground has never existed. So if it doesn't exist, the Red Sea route is under threat. If the Red Sea route is under threat, I mean, you have to, like I said, Somalia, Yemen, and Sudan. All three are in problems. If that is under threat, that is why you find all guys, all these big chaps who got their ports, their bases in Djibouti. They are not gone to Eritrea because Eritrea has a problem with Ethiopia. So they've gone to Djibouti. And they've avoided Eritrea, they've avoided Sudan, they've avoided, and of course Saudi has their interest, but can do very little here. Yemen. So to avoid Yemen, Somalia, and after 3 days back, there were some Somalis who were trying to get hold of a super tanker. I don't know what happened. So the Red Sea route is becoming increasingly difficult. Iran destabilized, don't want to touch Turkey. So then this land route is out of question. And with Pakistan instability in Balochistan. So what is left? IMEC. You think IMEC has just come out of this circle? People say IMEC nahi chalega. I've always been saying IMEC chalega. Why do you think Trump is doing all this so that Israel is cooled down? Then this opens. If this corridor opens, a lot of things sort out. Then Sudan can keep fighting. So there is a lot of, well, good, bad, or ugly. This is the scene there. I'm not going to pontificate and say it should happen, not happen, who's good, bad, or thing, because ये पिछले God knows till when, from when. So far, 1.5 lakh people have died, 13 million people have been displaced. And this is now. This is not the previous one. All this is there in Darfur. And Darfur area has been seeing this crisis for long. Yet, despite this, ore is getting smuggled out. Everyone wants his piece of cake there, and he wants to smuggle things out. It's all about money, control, everything, right? So it's a I won't say sorry state of affairs. This is the state of affairs there. Compared to what's happening there, I think we are very well off. But we need to understand what's happening there. We need to understand because instability there affects. I've connected finally how it affects the IMEC. Right. Uh, I must thank all of you who attended. I'm so grateful to you. I do hope you people have got educated. I might have gone wrong in a few things here and there, right? Because we don't deal with this daily. Uh, that's how it is. So I thought let me take a few questions after this. If you like this video, press the like button, subscribe to Gunner Shot, and also join me as members. I do understand not many of you will be interested in this, but I said people have requested me to talk of it. So I must talk even if the viewership is a little less. Right? Okay. And I also see very few questions, so I'll take all of them. Yeah, thanks a lot, Miraj Patel. You were the first who came on. Ladybird Haru, good evening, and fellow viewers. Yeah, Praval76, good evening, Jai Hind. Great power game in Africa. I agree with you. Right. Uh, yeah, mania phobia is war due to large gold mines and large agricultural land and proxy actors. Yeah, it's all there. Everything is mixed in this. Yeah, another interesting topic in a spot that has geopolitical implications that you have must understand all this. One is resources, gold, uranium, agriculture, all that. The second is the Red Sea route. Yeah, thanks for sharing memories and amazing history of Sudan bloc. Your views on US involvement in Nigeria seems like a tussle with China over Nigeria, not about Christians being killed by Boko Haram. Yep, I think so. Okay, and Nigeria is also another unstable country, which at one point of time was doing very well. A lot of oil there, but people are people. They've, you know, done what they have done. So we'll talk of Nigeria one of these days, right? Uh, yeah, this is specially for you people, Akash, Sundar, Krishna, and Jayant. If two Bengals, yeah, अपने भूटान चाइनीज क्लेम एक्सप्लेन किया है आप उसको हिंद बता सकते हो नॉट अंडरस्टूड अजय आप क्या चाहते हो मेरे को समझ में नहीं आया आपका सवाल क्या है अगर आप दोबारा टाइप कर सकते हो तो मैं बता दूंगा India sees an opportunity to assist Sudan with post-conflict reconstruction, leveraging its own experience in sector like solar, agri-tech, digital public infrastructure. Understood. I don't think we should go there. I don't think we should enter that place. We have always had good relations with Sudan, but it will not go forward. That's my own view. Yeah, Anjali Martins. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining from Connecticut. Is there a direct connection between NOTAMs and GFPF spoofing? No, there's no connection. NOTAMs are just notice to airmen to tell you, okay, in this area we are not going to fly. That's about all. Don't fly. Is India the fairest player in Africa compared to China, West? How can we build trust? Look, it's not a matter of trust. A lot of people in that place have trust. But the bigger problem is they don't have trust with each other. They keep fighting. And you have so many players who are coming in there to uh, inculcate fighting, who are backing fighting by opposite forces. So where will you go and ask them to say, okay, you will build trust? No one will listen to you. Yeah, any solution for Islam? Why Saudi won't stop radicalism? They're not looking at radicalism, Saudis and this thing. Please understand. They are looking to stop communism. That's the problem. I told you, no, the left wing system is there in Khartoum. Sudan was part of the original USSR, so there is that problem there. Egypt is backing the Sudan armed forces because they don't want RSF on their borders. I mean, there are complications. Russia has jumped into this whole scene because they want to ensure that US and its allies, US, UAE, and Saudi are kept away. US, I think, wants uranium there. UAE wants gold. So there are a whole lot of things in that place. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I think this episode is important for the archives. Yeah, we need to understand. You see, when you talk of one country, what is the effect on the third, fourth country? We need to understand. I ask again, I never get a good answer for this. What is it about Gaza that sells? I've never seen protests about Sudan or Tibet or Xinjiang in New York or London. Is it because of Jew hate? Yes, partly because of Jew hate, and partly because people have gone abroad. And you see, the Palestine problem, or the Palestinians were quite integrated with the Britishers at some point of time, and that flipped. And the Palestinians have had a taste of outside world. If you see this area, if you see Lebanon, Lebanon was the Paris of the East. Okay, and if you see this entire area, not Gaza alone, all these areas, before it became a predominantly Jewish state, it was quite a modern area. Palestinians were quite normal, and they were well integrated with the Britishers. They were integrated with the West. They were well integrated with a whole lot of other forward-thinking people. They had a lot of migration from there abroad. It was only after the Balfour Declaration and the proclamation of Israel as a state, the whole thing fell apart. So the Palestinians have better connectivity, and they're fighting for that piece of land. And it's a different struggle altogether. There, it is internecine fighting. Both can't go anywhere. And of course, the Jew factor is there. There's no doubt about it. The Jew factor is there. The Muslim factor is there. Two different religions. When two different religions were there, that state broke. Sudan broke. Yeah, hope you're well. I'm fine. Where is this geopolitical template being used, sir? I mean, I've not got your answer. What do you mean to say geopolitical template being used? Where else? You have to elaborate it. I'll answer. What is the Indian stance, please? The Indian stance is just keep quiet. Let it continue. You don't have anything you can do about it. Whole time we keep crying about China did this on the border, China did that on the border. We must also do something. No, yes, we must. But for that, you need to have political capability. Thank you, General, for your a well of knowledge. You are very brilliant and insightful. What do you think about false Chinese population numbers? I think their food is killing them and subpar medicines. Yeah, that's a very good question which you asked, Miraj. Actually, I wanted to do a different program today evening. I wanted to do about the contradictions of China and their capability to, prosecute a war. But I was speaking of NDA, AO, and Sudan came in, and I said, yeah, I swung to Sudan. I have to talk about China, and that will include this. There's a contradiction about China. Is there a crisis in China, or is China on the superhighway? We'll examine that. We'll examine that. I can't do it tomorrow. Tomorrow and day after, I'll not be on air because I have to go out somewhere. Tuesday morning, I'll talk of that. Yeah. Salute, sir. UN was effective that time. Wasn't there any effort by them way back? Yeah, there was a lot of effort. UN's heydays finished after 9/11. After that, they're useless. That's it. Please continue your videos taking down memory lane. They're the most unique and precious with special emotional touch. Thank you. I'm glad that you liked it because I feel that we need to revisit our own emotions always. We are people there. I always admire this institution. Our constitution stands tall in the contemporary world. All these Africans and Asian countries were freed from colonial rule at the same time. Yeah, that actually, you're a very good point you made, Sunil, because look at what is our country. Around the same time, all these chaps got, independence. Where are they now and where are we? Look at Pakistan. Why go that far to Sudan? Look at Egypt, where it is. Egypt was the jewel in the crown of the Britishers. Today, where is Egypt? वो तो कर्ज में डूबा हुआ है. Sudan, you see where it is. You see Pakistan, you see Iran, gone. Iraq, all these chaps have just disintegrated. Yeah, these podcasts are super, sir. Thanks for explaining. Sudan is a strategic game changer. It looks like a wicked problem. Western democracies has to pay in second-tier conflict. That's part of the game. They're prepared to pay because they want resources. The Chinese and US are causing self-serving commotion on the continent. India is a trustworthy nation, Vishwamitra, and it's becoming visible to the youth. I don't know again. The point is that we are not able to put out our narratives. We're not been able to put out our you know message across well to everyone. That's the problem. The constitution and founding fathers are crucial to any nation. Sudan offers a valuable lesson for those who adhere to the extreme left and extreme right. Why go that far? Look at Pakistan, yeah. What you're saying is right, but look at Pakistan. What's happening? In fact, that's another thing which I thought I'll talk of. The way the constitution is changing in Pakistan. They are shedding constitutions like nappies. Yeah, so on a lighter note, next time please put disclaimer this podcast is educating all levels of IQ viewer, not to compete with Chat GPT, Gemini, etc. because every pod checks all boxes. No, that's not the point. I would like to, I have an interest in all this. So that's how, for me, it's a well spent good evening for me, interacting with all of you. And when you give some good, tough answers for me to answer, is a pleasure. Global South is the future, all say. What all want to, why all want to loot them and disturb? That's how it is. That's how it is. And that's how Africa is. That's why Africa will never come up. Today, Xi Jinping and Fujian carrier in news. Xi looked happy and well, we'll talk of it. Don't worry. Chinese report that India pharma doesn't invent new drugs and just copies is incorrect. India invented new drugs, naphthyromycin. After look, that is their report which came. That's about all. We shouldn't get bothered too much. Keep up your work, especially on CCP, China's population internal strife. Audience may be smaller, but knowledge isn't universally accepted. Thank you. Thanks a lot to all of you. Thanks to all of you for all these questions, and thanks for hanging on till the end. Like I said, next 48 hours I'll not be on air. I'll start back on Tuesday morning. I'll put out some old videos which are valuable, so that you can keep seeing and all that. And Tuesday in the morning, by then, if the Pakistan puzzle has moved forward, we'll talk of Pakistan, because what's happening in Pakistan with Article 243 is very important. Okay, and how this fellow will emerge. By then, if we get some gyan, we'll talk of that. Otherwise, I'll get to China. And I'll talk of the contradiction of China. One of the two on Tuesday morning. Till then, have a great day. Enjoy yourself. Thank you, and Jai Hind to all of you.